If you have watched some of our YouTube videos, you'll probably know that our favorite software for streaming is OBS. But having said that, OBS is definitely not your only option. That's why today we will focus on another very popular and often used software called vMix. But after making the video, we realized that it's a bit too long to be just one video. And that's why we decided to split this video up into 3 separate videos. So enjoy the first part of this 3-part series where I will show you the vMix interface, how to add a camera and how to add a microphone. Color change in 3, 2, 1. Like OBS, vMix is a software you can use for creating and composing your live stream before connecting it to WebinarGeek. Unlike OBS, vMix is a Windows-based software only, and to download it on your Mac, you will have to use a Windows Boot Camp. Also, vMix is not a free open source software. Their most basic plan is 60 USD. To check their pricing and other licenses, go to the vMix website. They do have the option to try the vMix Pro plan for free for 60 days. This will also be the version we are going to use today. So let's dive into the vMix software to create a basic setup including some of vMix's most used features. Once you have downloaded the vMix software or the trial software, you'll see the vMix interface. According to vMix, the interface should represent a traditional hardware switcher. That's because on the left you have a preview window colored orange, and on the right you have the output window, also known as program. And on the bottom you have your input area. Here you can see and add your inputs for your webinar. But it's time to add a camera. So go to the bottom left of the input area and click on Add Input. Here you will see a list of all the inputs that you can add in vMix. But we're going to select a camera, so click on Camera. Next, just like with OBS, you need to tell vMix what camera to use. So click on Camera, and here you will see a drop-down menu of all the cameras we can add. And of course, here at WebinarGeek, we will use the Logitech C922 Pro Stream Webcam. Select that one. The resolution is 1920 by 1080, which is correct. Frame rate is 30 or 30 somewhat, which is nice. And here you'll see audio device. Like I mentioned before in a lot of different videos, the Logitech webcam has 2 built-in omnidirectional microphones. But because we are going to add another microphone later, you need to set this to none. In OBS, you can't have 2 audio inputs, but in vMix you can. So if you don't want 2 audio inputs interfering with each other, click on it and select none, and then the microphones of the webcam will be turned off. On the bottom you'll see a number as well. Well, this is your input number, but this is our first input, so I'll just leave this to 1. And then click on OK. And as you can see here in vMix, the Logitech webcam is now visible in both the preview window and the program window. Now the camera is set to input 1. To close an input, just simply click on close this input, but we just added it and I don't need to close it. You can also minimize an input. If you have a lot of inputs right here in your input area and you don't want everything to be visible, just right click on the input and it will minimize the input, and to bring it back, right click again. Another great option is, as you can see right here, you see a screen icon, and if you click the screen icon, you can see your input full screen. If you want to remove the full screen menu, just click on your input again, and then it will close. Right next to the screen icon, you have a gear icon for some options for this input, which in our case is the webcam. So click on the gear icon in your input area. And now we are in the general settings of input 1. And right here we can change the name if we want to, but it's currently displaying the name of our webcam, which I think is fine. The aspect ratio is widescreen, and then you see category with a lot of different colors. These colors are great if you work with a lot of inputs, like if you have multiple cameras or multiple microphones, you can each set them to a different color to easily find them in your input area. But we are creating a very simple USB setup, so I only need 1 color, and I will keep that to the default color, which is like this gray black type color. Then we have a lot of other options. You can sharpen your image, which I don't recommend. I'm not a fan of digitally sharpening your images, and we don't need to because our webcam has autofocus, and the Sony we are using has manual focus, and of course I am in focus. You can also mirror your camera image if you want, which is a very handy, quick way to do that. And you can also change the mouse click option for this specific input. Like I said, if you click on an input, it will automatically go to a preview, but you can change that here if you want to. But I'm used to work with clicking on an input and setting it to preview, so I will just keep that on preview. Source aspect ratios, widescreen, resolution and frame rate. Once again, we don't need to change that. And also you see a lot of options here that says automatically. I will take a look at that when we are going to add our video. But first, I want to show you another tab. If we go to the left, and that's the color adjust. Here you will see a red, green, blue and a saturation slides, also known as RGB slides. And for example, if you want your image to be a little bit more red, like so, well, green and of course blue. This is not a great camera image and I want to reset everything. So just press reset and everything is back to normal. You also have a main saturation button and that will look like this. If you go to the slide, and all the images are very, very saturated and very, very bright and colorful. And if I set this all the way to 0, you will have a black and white image. You also have an auto white balance, which we don't need to do. You also have a black stretch and a white stretch, and this is great for the contrast. So let's say we put the black all the way up top. Well, this is what that looks like. Pretty scary actually. So I'll just set this to none. And the white stretch to make everything white. But there's nothing wrong with our camera image, so there's no need to change all the colors. Then you have the color key, which is great if you work with a green screen or blue screen, whatever you're using. Color correction for some more advanced options like gain or gamma. And then the tab that I do want to show you is the position tab. Because we have a lot of slides once again, we have zoom, we have pan and we have crop, and we even have a rotate option. And if you know a little bit about math, I don't need to explain to you what X and what I is, but I will show you anyway. You have a general zoom slide, which will just zoom your image. And as you can see, the X and the Y zoom is corresponding to that. But I would just press reset to reset everything. Like you can see, every slider has its own reset. The X goes that way and the Y goes that way. You also have the pan option, but like I said, there is nothing wrong with our camera image, so there is no need to change it. And there's even a rotate. So I will press reset, and you can even rotate it in different ways. If you press the Z, you can also rotate it to the X, and if you rotate it to the I, we can also rotate it to the I. But I will just press reset. Be aware, you really need to reset the X, the Y and the Z every time. And here you also have crop with the same X, Y principle. But there's no need for us to crop the image, so just press reset all and our camera image is back to normal. Now our camera is ready and it's time to add a microphone. And you can add a microphone the same way as your camera input. So once again, click on the bottom left on add input. And then we need to search for audio input. Click on audio input, click on the drop down menu of your audio device and select the microphone that you want to choose. In our case, the blue snowball. There aren't many options here, but there will be, because you may already saw in the audio mixer you have another gear icon. But here you can select mute in headphones. So I will press it. So if I press this, there won't be any audio playback. Number 2, that's great because this is a second input. And click on OK. And as you can see in our audio mixer on the bottom right, we have 2 faders right there. And you can see within your input area that there is a green audio level as well. So let's take a look at the audio mixer and the gear icon I talked about earlier. I will give you a general overview of the settings and tell you about these settings. And the first thing I want to mention are the 2 audio levels that you see right here. One that says pre and one that says post. The pre is for the audio before it goes into vMix. And I say before it goes into vMix because the other slider, the post, is the actual audio that's being sent to your output. Now, if you don't change any settings at all, as you can see, these faders work simultaneously. And if I add, for example, a gain or anything else, it will be shown in the post and not in the pre, because the pre is just the raw audio from, in our case, the Blue Snowball. I'm going to take a look at the other settings as well. Well, the format, it's just nice for you to see. And then we have channel. If you know anything about audio, you know you have a left and a right channel, mono and stereo. And you can select separate mono. And what separate mono means is that you can, well, I will just show you. Now we have two gain slides, and if I set gain 1 very high, you will see in the post on the left that the left channel is higher than the right. And if I set the gain 2 as well, you will see that they are both equally loud again. But I don't want it, so I just press reset and reset. And I will change this back to all, and then we have just one gain in general. You already saw. If I set this gain very high, you will see that the post will go up, and if I talk really loud, it turns red at the bottom. But I don't want that because I like this microphone the way it sounds, so I just set the gain to 0. And then you have delay. Now the amount of delay is depending on your camera latency. I really can't give you any advice on that because I don't know what camera or microphone you are using. But please take a listen, take a look to see if what you're saying is the same as your face and what you eventually will hear. Then you will have, you see a very small box right here, visible in mixer. If I turn this off, it won't be visible in our audio mixer, but of course that is something that I want. And here you have a dial and next to the headphone icon, and that is if you haven't muted your input in your headphones, you can change how loud this input will be audible via your headphones. And you can also add, right here in the audio settings, you also have plugins, EQ, compressor, noise gate, you have a channel mixer and you have a channel matrix, but those are very, very difficult and advanced settings, and we are creating a basic video setup, so I won't be using any of those. So I will just save this or keep this the way it was, and if I press close once again, it will close. If we take a look at the audio mixer once again, we also have some general and basic options for this input. And I will start with the small fader on top. This is for panning your audio left or right. Be aware if you do work with that separate mono option that I just showed you, and I have set the left very high and I set this slider all the way to the left, the audio is only audible in the left ear and it's very, very loud. So please be aware of that. The big fader here is for the decibel. Configure audio settings we just did. And then we have solo this input for monitoring on your headphones. This is if you have multiple audio inputs and you just want to hear this one in your headphones. You can select it, and then on the top of the output menu you see solo as well. Then here you have a button so you can let vMix automatically mix your audio. I haven't looked into that setting yet, but I do think that most microphones are good the way they are. Maybe a little gain or maybe a little bit of delay, but besides that there's really no need to change anything for your audio settings, unless you have to, of course. But even then, if you have to, I wouldn't recommend letting vMix do it automatically. And then you have this button right here, toggle on or off this input. Right now it's turned off, and if I press it, the levels turn green once again. And if you take a look right now at the input area, there's also a button right here, audio, and that does the same thing as this button right here. And as you can see, it also corresponds with each other. And then you have this button M, send this input to the master. The master is the fader left to it, and that is for the general audio. If you have multiple inputs, you can send them all to the master, so you don't need to change the settings of each and every single one of your microphones every time you change something. And that is basically all that I wanted to show you for the audio and the microphone. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about webinars, on how to host them, what gear to use and what it is like to work at a tech startup, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click like on this video and hit that notification bell. And let me know, do you already use vMix for your webinars? Thank you so much for watching and see you on the next one. Bye!